You know that incredible feeling of pride when you accomplish something and you just think, I did that? Well, what if I told you that entire feeling, that deep sense of personal achievement, might be, well, a bit of a misunderstanding? Today, we're diving into a really profound idea from an ancient text that's going to challenge everything you think you know about who's actually in control.
I mean, we've all been there, right? You absolutely crush a tough project at work. You build something with your own two hands, or maybe you finally hit a personal best at the gym, and that voice inside your head just swells up and says, "That was all me." It's got to be one of the most satisfying human feelings. But what if it's not the whole story?
Yep, you heard that right. There's this ancient 3,000-year-old text that makes a pretty wild claim. Our deeply held belief that we are the independent doers of our own actions, it says that's a massive illusion, a misunderstanding of how reality actually works. It's asking us to think about a totally different way of seeing things.
So where does this radical idea come from? It's from the Bhagavad Gita, and we're going to unpack just a single verse, 327, that really gets to the core of this whole thing. It's super short, but believe me, it packs a huge philosophical punch.
Just let that sink in for a second. The text says that a bewildered soul who's being influenced by something called false ego makes a big mistake. It thinks it's the one in charge of everything, but in reality, the actions are actually being carried out by material nature. Okay, so right away, this brings up two huge questions. What in the world is this false ego? And what exactly is material nature? The verse uses some very specific terms, and they're absolutely key to getting what it's talking about. So let's break down the two main players in this cosmic drama, the false ego and material nature. First up, we have ahaṅkāra. And here's the key thing. This isn't just about being arrogant or cocky. It's something much deeper. It's the fundamental conviction, that voice in our head that says, I am the doer. It's the part of our consciousness that completely identifies with our body and mind and takes full ownership, full credit for everything they do. So if we're not the doer, who is? Well, according to the text, the force that's actually doing all the work is prakṛteḥ, or material nature. The best way to think about it is that nature provides the entire vehicle, our body, our mind, the whole shebang. It's this incredibly complex machinery with its own rules that's performing all the actions. So we're less like the driver and more like the passenger who's convinced they're the one steering the car. Okay, so this is all pretty abstract, right? What does this actually look like in real life? The source text says there's a wide gulf of difference between someone who gets this concept and someone who doesn't, even if, from the outside, they're doing the exact same thing. This chart lays it out perfectly. On the left, you've got the bewildered soul. They're totally driven by that false ego, convinced they are the one doing everything, and they take all the credit. They're acting out of what the text calls nescience, which is basically just ignorance. But on the right, you have the conscious soul. This person knows that nature is the real force at play. They see their body as a tool, and they act with this knowledge, with this awareness, in a spirit of service. It's a totally different mindset. This all makes you wonder, doesn't it? If this whole I am the doer thing is really an illusion, how do we get so completely tangled up in it? Well, the text actually gives a pretty clear breakdown of how it happens.
It's described as a kind of chain reaction. It all starts with what it calls the long-term misuse of the senses, basically using our body and mind purely for our own personal gratification. This constant self-focus is like fuel for the false ego, making that I am the doer feeling stronger and stronger. And what's the end result? We totally forget our real nature and our connection to the much bigger system of control.
And that brings us to the final and maybe most important piece of the puzzle. If we aren't the ultimate doer, and all our actions are actually carried out by material nature, then who or what is supervising this whole system? The text introduces one last name for us, hrishikesha, and it means the master of the senses. The idea here is that material nature isn't just acting randomly. It's actually being supervised by a higher consciousness, a supreme lord, who is the ultimate controller of the very senses that we mistakenly think we command. So let's bring this all together. According to this ancient verse, that feeling of, I did this, is really just a product of the false ego. The actions themselves, they're performed by the machinery of material nature. Now, this isn't a call to just sit back and do nothing, not at all. It's a call for a huge shift in our perspective, to move away from taking all the credit for our successes and all the blame for our failures, and toward understanding our real position within a much, much larger cosmic system. And that really leaves us with one last massive question to chew on. If you accept this perspective, if you strip away the identity of being the doer, then who are you, really?